Welcome back to Monday Minutes. I'm Rhodin. Of course, you're listening to Startup Cabin Podcast, and today I want to talk about gaining regular intellectual capital. So what I mean by that is learning regularly and developing your knowledge. There is this thing that I noticed. I was at an event a couple of weeks ago, and someone asked, how many experts are there in the room? And everybody laughed super nervously because everybody's afraid to be called an expert, because nowadays being called an expert is like kind of telling someone that they're stupid. Because people kind of have this idea that expert is an old term that portrays a person who thinks they're an expert, meaning they're on top of the world and can never get smarter, and therefore don't learn. I think this social nervousness, because that's what it is kind of overrated and a bit silly to have like grown people do this in a room. It's just ridiculous. Expert is just a word for someone who knows a lot about a subject. It doesn't mean they know everything, because nobody can. But just like get over that. Anyways, when it comes to developing your knowledge and expanding your knowledge, it's also part of keeping your brain healthy, keeping your brain up to speed, keeping your brain active, and helping it learn to focus on solving problems. So there's a lot of big entrepreneurs out there, and during their journey, they usually talk about money, they talk about success, but after a while, they start talking about intellectual capital. And for example, one of the guys that definitely do that is Warren Buffett. He's kind of like the poster child for that. He always talks about how much he reads per week, per day, and that he owes kind of his success to being so eager to learn and loving to read. There's a lot of those entrepreneurs out there that talk about this, like super famous, super wealthy, super smart entrepreneurs. And I think there's a couple of schools and a couple of kind of institutions that have understood this. I think partly Hyper Island and Singularity University and other kind of more modern type of thinking schools have realized that learning to learn is just like, that's it. Learning is part of your job. It's always going to be part of your job. You're never finished. And enjoy the journey instead. So that's very interesting, of course, when someone who's super, famous, they're super rich, they're super successful, says that, they owe their success to reading. And, reading like they were in school, like they were still a kid. Though I was curious to see if there's any kind of research backing this up, because it's one thing that one person says that, but there's another thing is if there's actually proof for it. And I actually found proof for this. So I found some really interesting research that is done on Americans, and it's based on looking at the habits of wealthy and poor people. And I mean, I'm not going to judge who's poor or wealthy and what that means, but this is in terms of actual money. And what they saw super clearly was the difference in the mindset around learning. And it's kind of like scary how big the gap in between was. So this is based on billionaires' habits, not millionaires, billionaires. So people who have reached pretty extreme success by our standards in today's society. So these are the facts. More than 60% of the wealthy people had been watching TV for less than an hour a day or even at all, while it was less than 20% of the poor that had that low TV watching time. And over the weeks, if you look at your TV habits, you'll notice if you actually put them all together, that's a lot of hours. Partly why people get stuck in television and why people get stuck watching TV series and movies and shows every night is because your brain pretty much shuts off while you're watching TV. So you're not solving any problems, you're not doing anything, you're just receiving. You're not developing, you're not, chewing that down. So I think that the average, they've said that 80% of your brain shuts off when you watch television. When I heard that the first time, I threw out my TV and I ripped up the cables and everything. And that was probably, I guess, 10 years ago. I have a TV still, but I haven't had it plugged in for at least 10 or 11 years. And the only thing I do on it is I put it on when I want to watch one of my regular shows or I want to do some gaming. But the thing is, when you take the plug out, you remove the habit, you remove the constant reminder of that you should be watching something. And then in exchange for that, instead I started doing my brunches. So my brunches, I actually had I was doing a panel discussion a couple of weeks ago, and one of the guys that was listening came up to me afterwards and asked, so how does this brunch thing work? Can you get invited to those? And I didn't realize, but I had written on my personal website, shemairodin.com, which is like a presentation page of who I am, about these brunches, because they're such a big part of like my weekly rhythm. So every Saturday, it's usually Saturdays, sometimes it's Sundays, I sit the first part of the day, often till around like 1 o'clock. I fix a nice brunch, something good to eat. I sit down with my computer, books, and notes, and I just go through things that I need to learn. Things that I feel like this is a field that I have to dig deeper into. This is a field I have to explore. This is something I want to do better research on because I see nobody else is doing it. Or this is a problem I want to solve and I want to find good resources to solve it. So the focus on my brunches is reading, listening to audiobooks, and getting good information, like authentic information. Because you can't spend your whole week doing that. But if you have no set time for learning, that is not based on, taking care of your employees, taking care of, your team, taking care of clients, all of that stuff, you're never going to get it in there. So you have to dedicate time to get that done. And I would encourage you to find a spot in your week, every week, that is dedicated to doing this for you, because you need it. If you don't do this, your knowledge you have today is going to be obsolete in a couple of years, and someone else is going to get ahead of you. And that's part of building confidence. That's part of building good long-term strategies and keeping on top of your game. So when it comes to all this, reading every week, reading every month, getting that knowledge in there, having a habit of reading and taking in information, I can tell you this. 81% of the wealthy people had a to-do list that they maintained every week. 9% of the poor people had that. They listened to audiobooks while commuting. 79% of the wealthy people did that. Less than 5% of the poor ones did that. Read 30 minutes each day or more. 88% of the wealthy people did that. 2% of the poor. When it came to the love of reading, 86% of the wealthy said that they love to read, and less than 26% of the poor. So this is not, a research on why someone like poor don't like to read. It was just like these were the habits that they have created and that they owed their success to that. Just being interested in reading. And today it's so freaking simple. One thing to get that kind of time in there is what you're doing right now. You're watching either our show on YouTube or you're listening to us on our podcast. That's something you can do during your commute hours. Get some knowledge in there, some insights to ponder about and figure out what it means for you. And that's something I want to say as well with these Monday Minutes. They're not to say that you should do this or that. It's just to give you some thoughts, some insights that you can build upon. So, whatever you're doing, that's your thing. But this is just a way for you to get some new knowledge and new perspectives on your life as an entrepreneur or investor. Thank you so much for listening. Please subscribe and share this podcast with other people. We would be so thankful if you did that. And please comment what you thought about this, and any books or anything else you want to share with me. You can just add it to a tweet and tag us with Startup Cabin. That's our Twitter, or you can send it on Instagram. It's the same, Startup Cabin. And I'll talk to you in the next episode.